And now to a major development, unveiling the Gambia's first opinion poll by the Center for Policy, Research and Strategic Studies in partnership with the National Endowment for Democracy. The maiden opinion poll sampled in August explore critical governance issues and public perceptions on the upcoming presidential elections. Zainab Jain has more.
Major media capacity building training. Results from the opinion polls conducted by CepRass were released via a presentation led by Dr. Mustafa Jabate. The scheme, themed on political opinion poll research in the Gambia to assess public perceptions on issues of national interest, is being conducted by CepRass, which is set to release the results of the polls. Lamin, Dampha, Executive Director of CepRass, gave an overview of what the center does.
The center focuses on research and consultancy related to the following thematic areas: innovation and development, politics and governance, economic growth and inequality, migration, education and health, and organizational building and management system for development. The center is well positioned with the requisite expertise and facilities to handle surveys, training, and research work. Our team for any given assignment is selected based on academic proficiency, relevant experience, and proven track record to be able to competently and efficiently execute all tasks demanded by our clients.
The chairperson of Tango, John Charles Njai, outlined the importance of opinion polls as he commended the center for the crucial activity.
And I hope that from these polls, we will be able to draw lessons. Politicians will be able to formulate policies that will be good for the country and not for themselves. As a nation, we stand at a crossroads. The times ahead may look gloom and doom, but I am confident that this nation will rise from the ashes. This nation, by what you do, we will be able to better our democracy. We will be able to build our democracy. We will be able to be a better nation and a better people.
The Women's Rights Coordinator for Action Aid International, the Gambia, Tabunjai Saad, said the public opinion poll will play a vital role in the understanding of social preferences.
We've been observing as civil society on elections since 2001, and no such an initiative has ever been shared with. And that being the case, we go by our traditional voting system and we follow sentiments. We vote not basing it on facts, but we vote basing it on religion, basing it on geographical area, basing it on ethnicity, basing it on soft arguments, soft opinions rather than facts. And having the opportunity to receive such information today will help us a long way, especially those that are in civil society organizations. When we are very key stakeholders in the process, I think this will also help us in critically looking at how instrumental and the characteristics that follow our elections.
The Women's Rights Coordinator for Action Aid International, the Gambia, said CepRass conducted the opinion polls to determine scientific results for development.
So, and this is what we want to see. We want people to vote based on issues. Because in the manifesto, you speak to the electorate what you want to do. Okay, what is your competence, right? So, if this is the most important thing to 60% of the respondents, I think this is really promising, right?
The Well-Timed Scheme joins efforts led by civil society organizations to increase participation in the civic process, which reaches a critical point ahead of the country's first election cycle after the departure of former exiled President Yahya Jammeh. Zainab Jain for GRTS News.
Well, let's bring in the researchers behind this initiative, Mr. Lamin, Dampha, Executive Director of CepRass, and Dr. Hamidou, Juwara Research Fellow, CepRass, who are part of the team that conducted the opinion poll survey. They are here with us to tell us more about the opinion poll and the results garnered. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now it's a historic poll and the first to explore public perceptions on election. How comprehensive was this exercise?
Thank you very much. I think the exercise itself is quite comprehensive, looking at the coverage, because it has covered the entire country. Now, you should understand that the survey draw its inspiration from, organizing a poll looking at issues of national interest. So in order to have a very representative sample, we ensure that we get a sampling frame from the IH, that is Integrated Household Survey, that was conducted recently by Gambia Bureau of Statistics, and then that's about 14,191 households. So the sampling was done on a multi-stage approach, where the households were stratified, in LGAs, and further on we look at we put them into 48 districts that we have, and then we are able to randomly select about 34 districts out of the 48, and their telephone numbers were assigned to the various households, and we are able to collect using a telephone survey. So we are talking about 969 households that were interviewed. Of course, we should also understand that the sampling, especially this kind of research, using a telephone, so it cannot be 100% successful in terms of the acceptance rate. Therefore, we had to oversample in order to cater for that kind of non-response, and consequently we also replace, and we are able to get the required number. So it's about 9,609 people were surveyed. In fact, it cut across the gender line, and of course, the youth, women, and of course, the male counterparts are all being factored in.
Very well. Now come to you, Mr. Juwara. Mr. Dampha actually mentioned about young people, and we understand that young people emerge prominently in the poll. What does this indicate to political parties and candidates?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ami, and good evening to your viewers. I think that's a very important question. If you look at the demographics, Gambia today consists of a lot of young people. In fact, they constitute the majority of the population, and therefore it's not maybe too surprising that in the opinion poll it also came out that we have a lot of respondents that were young. In fact, we reported that if you look at the respondents, you have that about 68% between the age of 18 and 44, and this is also in line with the voters registration exercise that was done by the IEC, where it came out that youths have actually registered a lot for the upcoming elections, and that means for the parties it's important that when they are looking at what kind of message that they need to send to voters, that their message is well targeted to the youths, and making sure that their policies are actually appealing to the young demographics. I think that is something that is very important, and if you look at also our results, we have something on what the respondents that we interviewed think it's the most important issue that any new government has to address, and what most of the respondents said, it's youth unemployment. which is also, I think, very remarkable, that, you know, people really think youth matters are important, and candidates should put a particular attention to that, especially if they are trying to woo young voters.
Very well. Now let's look at some of the areas sampled as electorates influences for voting. Are voters looking for substance and viable manifestos from the candidates?
Yes. If you look at our questions, a particular question was asked on, you know, what are the motivating factors for, the electors to vote for their candidate, and the response that stand out was the political manifesto. Of course, a lot of critics around, question, looking at the, illiteracy level of the Gambia, and also not many political parties have in place, their manifestos. But again, they need to understand that when we talk about manifesto, we are not really, our question is not only targeting, the document called the manifesto, but even the policies that, the political parties talk about, during their rallies, some of those issues are all being considered as part of manifesto. So therefore that should not surprise, people at the end of the day if a lot of people, said that they vote, mainly on political manifesto.
Very well. Now I'll come to you, Juwara, again. Elections are quite unpredictable and can usher in challenges. So voters focus on a peaceful process.
Yeah, I think peaceful elections are very important in any electoral cycle. And, this is an issue that is important not only for Gambia, but many elections across the globe. And, there are two things, I think, from the poll that are interesting with regards to peaceful election. One is that when you ask voters how is the relationship between political parties, how is it like? So most respondents actually said that the relationship between the political parties are not it's not very good. In fact, majority said it's poor, and you have a significant number that said it is very poor, which means the political climate in the Gambia, it's actually tense, right? And this should be something that should concern everyone. But then, on a good note, is that despite the political tensions, most Gambians, especially those that we included in our survey, right, still believe that there is a good chance that there would be peaceful elections. So people are very optimistic, that the election in the Gambia it's going to be peaceful. Which is something that is good, something that is positive, and I think all the stakeholders in the election, it's their responsibility to actually preach peace, and to make sure that the electoral cycle it's freed of any form of violence.
Very well. Now back to you, Mr. Dampha. Now this poll was conducted in August, which is quite recent. Could this data sift in any way if all the moderating factors are examined?
Yes. In fact, this research was conducted from July 27 to 10th of August. So the data we are talking about here was conducted during that time. If you look at the political system in the country currently, a lot of things have changed. That is why at our center, this is the first pre-election poll. We are also going to organize another pre-election poll, which is going to be very close to the election. At that time, we expect that those dynamics that have changed over time, we should be able to collect data on that to see, how things have shifted. And that is why, we plan to maintain the respondents that we have asked in the first poll in order to have that kind of consistency, to make the analysis, credible. So, I mean, there is a high chance of things might change. And the poll itself, if you look at it, in terms of undecided voters, is large. You're talking about 40%. You understand? So at the time we expected to do the second poll, perhaps maybe those undecided voters would have now decided which political party to vote for. So I think it's still very early to predict the winner of the election, but all the same, when we get closer to it, perhaps the picture could be a little bit clearer.
Very well. Thank you, gentlemen, for honoring our invitation. That was Mr. Lamin, Dampha, Executive Director of CepRass, and Dr. Hamidou, Juwara Research Fellow CepRass, who are part of the team that conducted the opinion poll survey, talking to us about the results of a recently conducted opinion poll in the country.